Okay, another morning. Today I'm heading to the VMA waterfront to get a ticket to Robben Island. I think it's one of the must-do things here in Cape Town. That's where Mandela was held in prison for those X amount of years. So I'm gonna take care of that, and I think that's gonna make my trip here, Cape Town, well worthy. Let's go. So you get your tickets to Robben Island, I believe, here.
Once again, the whole island is 5.4 square kilometers, 12 hectares circumference. If someone will decide to walk around the island, it will take them plus minus 45 to an hour. By using any form of our transport, it will take them 30 to 45 minutes. Hope you enjoy the first phase of your tour and enjoy the second phase of your tour. And once again, thank you very much. As you'll be stepping outside, also it will be nice if you would say thank you to the driver for driving us safely around the island. Thank you.
Robben Island, maximum security prison, folks. The building's right there. And I'll be your host, showing you around the place. My name's Kotso Glenn Nswilingwe. I'm one of many political activists that were once locked up in that prison. During the days, we engaged against apartheid. 84 to 91, that's the time I was in there. Almost 7 years. And my prison number, 3884, 38/84. And when I got here, there were 5 of us. And all 5 of us, we came from the same political formation, African National Congress. For me, personally, that's an organization I joined 1979. That's when I left the country to live in exile. 3 countries, Tanzania, Angola, Zambia, in that order. But arrested in the country when we came in through Swaziland on our way to Secunda. And detained at a police station called John Foster Square. It's now called Johannesburg Central Police Station. Those days, there was an act of parliament that was passed around the 50s, but amended in 82. It's called the Internal Security Act. We were detained under section 29 of that. And there they only do one thing, is torture, both psychological and physical. And for me, it was a process that took 10 weeks. Asking me questions, some of those questions that I never had even answers for, and they still expected me to give them the answers. Eventually, when all that was done, we were arraigned with conspiracy to overthrow government, and things took a turn 6 weeks later when we were formally charged with treason, and then we had a trial. The trial was in the Supreme Court of Johannesburg. Today they call them Southern Gauteng High Court. That's where the trial took 7 months and 2 weeks to complete. We were afforded through the International Legal Aid Defense Fund. It was a British-based organization, a legal team. The instructing attorney was a man called Ishmael Ayob, and our senior counsel with his junior counsel was George Bezos. They did their best. We always knew that this was an uphill battle, made worse that one of us was the man who sold us out and also testified as a state witness in the trial. So we knew that there was no way we were going to escape this. We just were not sure how severe it was going to be. But after that, we were found guilty. On the 21st of September 1984, I was sentenced to 25 years. My co-accused had their own sentence. Actually, I didn't even hear the 25 years. I actually thought it was 15 years. So when I asked the lawyer and said 25, it made even matters worse for me. But that same day, there were already vehicles at the ready. Remember that throughout the trial, we were shackled, chained, and handcuffed. They even refused the judge's order to unshackle us in court. Definitely, we were never candidates for a bail because they knew we're not coming back. So each guy was brought into an unmarked vehicle at the back, still shackled, still chained, still handcuffed. And then there were other vehicles. It was a convoy, high speed, no stopping at any robot, cars being taken out. That's the only time, folks. Till today, I was definitely a VIP, you know, blue lights. And we traveled at that high speed at record time to get to a prison called Bloemfontein Prison. We were stopped there for a few, not few hours, about two hours. And then we were on the road again. And please remember that when all this is happening, they never tell us where we're going. It's just in, out, and that's the end of it. So the next stop was a prison called Colbert Prison. Now there we stayed for a longer few hours. Then we were on the road again. And Jetty 1 Waterfront. Now Jetty 1 Waterfront, a ferry was already waiting. I was told that we were actually late. So the ferry had to wait with 4 other guys. They were coming from Durban, so we were the ones who were delaying the ferry. And these were also political prisoners. And we were taken to this place on the ferry called the Hall, locked there. It took, well, that day I didn't know the time. Today I know now. It took 50 minutes for the ferry to dock here. It was a very beautiful sea condition, so there were no rough seas and swells and all those other things. And then we walked from the harbor using that very same footpath, going past the white flag. That's the main entrance into the prison. As of then, I ceased to be a name. I was now a number officially. There was no longer Kgalema Motlanthe. There was now 3884. 38/84. What does that mean? It means this. When I arrived here in 1984, I was recorded the 38th arrival. That's what it means. And I was to be here until the 20th of September 2009. My cutoff time was 12 midday. I've never ever asked anybody what would have happened if I stayed past the cutoff time. Let's say they want to make me leave at 1 o'clock. Would have they said, no, you have passed your time, so back in the prison? You know, I'm not sure if that would have happened. Luckily, prisoner Mandela was no longer here. He was now at Victor Visser, and President de Klerk were talking. Government wanted to negotiate the future of South Africa with Nelson Mandela. And Mandela said, absolutely not. You are not going to negotiate with prisoners. Only free men can enter into any negotiations. That forced their hand. That all political prisoners will be released unconditionally and our records expunged. This, folks, happened in 1989. This story I'm telling you. That 1989, not a single one of us left here. That year came and gone, we're locked there. They never even gave us an update to say, hey, by the way, this is what's going to happen. only prisoners who were at Portsmouth prison, and some of them were Mandela's co-accused, were released in '89. Then Mandela gets released 11 February 1990. They inform us that Mandela is out now. There was a serious euphoria and celebration that Mandela is, even though we didn't see that like you guys on TV physically. Definitely no media. And we were informed by the head of prison. Now you take that with a pinch of salt, you know? But we still celebrated. Yeah, we still celebrated because we believe that he's definitely out. 10th of June 1990, the first 100 prisoners were out of here. Minimum sentence were the first ones out. So I knew immediately I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. And indeed, it turned exactly like that. I was only released on the 27th of April, 1991, and there were 50 of us. They put us on a full dais. And now this time, we are no longer at the hall, we are standing at the top, and we are looking at everything, and we are absolutely singing and freedom songs. And then we also have an agreement amongst us that as soon as the ferry lands at the waterfront, we are walking to Table Mountain. Because folks, every day we're looking at that mountain and saying, one day is one day. So the problem with this thing we wanted to do, we were not aware that Table Mountain actually is not in Cape Town. So the closer the ferry is going to the waterfront, the mountains seem to go further back. And we realized, okay, this walking business is out. So luckily we were released into the care of the International Committee, the Red Cross. These are the folks who made it possible for us to get up the mountain a few hours later. And we were celebrating, of course, and I remember I was saying to one of my co-accused, Phineas, that look, man, I'm never setting my foot on that island ever again, you know? And then we, of course, and then we came down the mountain, and where do they take us? Straight to Kentucky Fried Chicken. So I knew definitely we are out if we're going to eat KFC, you know? 8 o'clock p.m., we are on the plane. Out of that 15 of us, we're heading to Johannesburg. And we landed on the other side. I've never seen so many people to come and meet 15 people. And it was an absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful evening. And we celebrated until the early hours of the morning. Actually, my family, they only got an opportunity to talk to me in the morning because I was pulled left and right by everybody. And then everybody was gone. And now it was me and the rest of my days. And I was thinking, what's next? Now, I hope you'll appreciate that the 90s were the most violent times in this country. Black people were killing black people. And now these people are releasing us into that environment. And now you don't know who to trust. Every time I saw a police vehicle come in this direction, and I'm going the same direction, then I take a turn, not just in case. They say, no, you know, you were released by mistake. Actually, we take you to Alcatraz or something like that. So it was, psychologically, it was killing me. I had a very small cycle of people. Majority of them were coming from this prison. Those are the people I trusted with my life implicitly. So you can understand, even going out and dating a woman was a mission impossible. But that had to happen also, you know. I'm married now, folks. I've got, I have 5 children and 3 grandchildren. I had to be very fast about it, you know. There was a lot of catching up to do.
Catch up with the lost time.
Absolutely. I came here at 21-year-old, by the way, when I entered this prison. I was not the youngest. The youngest guy was 13, from the Eastern Cape. So, I'm back.
Didn't you think of joining the politics?
That was my question.
Yeah. I thought about it. But I took a vow, even before I was arrested. I'm not interested in politics, in being a politician. I'm an activist. And once an activist, always an activist. And I'm still an activist till today. I believe that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this country. And I always want to make my contribution towards the upliftment of our people. That's why I live in Kgalema today, until I'm done with this, of course, and going back to Soweto, to help the community of Kgalema to realize those ideals, you know, that brought us into prison. So no, I've never had a desire to be a politician, and look what the mess is going on today. Any other question?
What was the driving force for you to become a political activist, like at such a young age? What was the one incident that happened to make you sacrifice your life?
There was actually not much of an incident as such. You know, when you grow up, okay, I'm from Soweto, folks. That's where I come from. Now, Soweto is a township by accident. Remember, there was nothing called Soweto until they passed an act of parliament called Group Areas Act, which demarcated certain parts of this country to be exclusively for white people. Now, the majority of the people of Soweto, they come from Sophia Town. And Sophia Town, a suburb on the outskirts of Johannesburg, was declared white people only. So those who are not white, out. So what was the southwest of Johannesburg before Soweto? White farmlands. That's what actually was Soweto. So they bought the land and they built a camp. Because Soweto basically was a camp to keep people in transit. Because eventually all the people of Soweto will be taken to their nominally independent countries. Ciskei, Twakwa, Transkei, Bophuthatswana, Venda, and so forth. I'm a Motswana. So why I stayed in Soweto was the majority Botswana-speaking people. There will be Zulu-speaking people, Xhosa-speaking people, because when the trucks come, they must not struggle to look for all the Xhosa-speaking people, you know? They are all in one place. So, then there will be no more Soweto. That is why Soweto was underdeveloped, lack of infrastructure, no electricity and all those other things. Very few schools, thousands of kids. So, when you have never been anywhere else growing up but Soweto, you don't think anything is wrong because you know no better. Everything is beautiful. Even though you don't have a flushing toilet, you don't have running water, you don't have lights, electricity, and so forth. Until you get into the city. My mom was a domestic worker. She worked for a Jewish family in Randburg. Then you go even further into the suburbs, and voila, something completely alien. But the question is, why? Why are others living in this particular manner? And you've got to be settled with now what you realize is inferior, inadequate, and discriminatory. Now, when you realize the why, that's when you get to be conscientized. Now, since now you know the why, and you understand it, what are you going to do about it? Now, folks, you realize this is a fight that you can't fight alone. So you go to those who are like-minded. At school, we are fighting an inferior, underfunded, under-resourced education. So we form Soweto Student Congress. In the township, we want to better the lives of our people, help the adults, you know, to push them to bring this fundamental change. We form Soweto Youth Congress. So these are the two vehicles that we will use for this transformation. That's how I started. Nobody taught me politics. It is the surrounding, the circumstances. Actually, in my family, I was the only one who did this. My grandmother called me the black sheep of the family. She will always say to me, go to school, don't worry about this, leave it to Mandela, he'll solve it. So, 1976 was the catalyst, the year when one said, we can't take this anymore. And I'm sure you know, folks. 3 running days of battles in the streets that will also spread throughout the country. 1979, you know, now I was this famous young man who was a serious thorn in the flesh of the security police, and then they were looking for me everywhere. 79, at the age of, I was turning 16, they declared me a persona non grata. Can you believe? And I had to leave the country into exile. Tanzania, Angola, Zambia. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
It was that you got outside of your surroundings and saw that things should be different because you were able to get outside of your
Absolutely.
surroundings.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Beautiful. Join me that way, please. Okay. We go in there. Watch your step. Please step in. Yes, please. Yes. We heading in there. Mind your step, please. Famous day now. If you're from Natal, you definitely know Harvik. Anyone from Natal here? Oh, definitely. Have you been to Harvik? Yes. Absolutely. Now, Mandela is taken to Johannesburg and detained there. And then eventually they charge him with 2 counts. Inciting people to strike, leaving the country without proper documentation. Mandela was already a lawyer, folks, by then. So he chose to be his own lawyer in court. He lost the case. He was found guilty. And he was sentenced for each count 5 years. But they were to run concurrent. So 5 years effective. Where did they take him? The old fort. The old fort is in Fontaine in Johannesburg. 9 months into that sentence, 23 September 1963, a farm called Lilisley Farm is raided by security police. This farm was used by a banned military armed wing, high command, called Umkhonto Wesizwe. Mandela was part of this high command. Now, when they raid it on a tip-off, they arrest a number of men. They seize weapons, explosives, and documents. It is the documents that would implicate Nelson Mandela. Where is he? He's already sitting in prison. So Mandela joined these men, and they're eventually charged with sabotage. And Mandela is made accused number 1. Their trial is famously called the Rivonia trial. It takes 9 months to complete that trial in Pretoria. Guilty. On the 12th of June 1964, they are all sentenced life in prison, 8. One of these 8 is a white man. His name is Dennis Goldberg. He goes to Pretoria Maximum Security. The 7, they drive them to a military air force base called Waterkloof or Waterkloof. A military plane fly them to another base in Cape Town called Eysterplaat. At Eysterplaat, they transfer them into a 9-seater Dakota that lands on this island. That's how Mandela got here, folks, with his 6 co-accused. And when they got here, Mandela became the 466th prisoner to arrive here in 1964. So who is 65? Walter Sisulu. Who is 67? Andrew Mlangeni. Do you understand? 465, 466, 467, because they were recorded as they were presenting themselves, not according to who was accused number 1. All right, Mandela was just behind Walter Sisulu. Sisulu was Mandela's best friend, confidant. Those two, their relationship goes back in the early 40s when they met in Alexandria. From Robben Island, Mandela was taken to Portsmouth Prison in Cape Town. 7 years there, folks.
Then he was moved to a prison in, they say what, French, Victor Fessa. And he was kept in a cottage house within the prison grounds. That's where Mandela was released after 18 months, on the 11th of February 1990. So, if you don't include Mandela's first trial and first prison, you will never get to 27 years. It will be 18 years on Robben Island, 7 years at Portsmouth, and 18 months at Victor Fessa. That's 26 years and 6 months. So to get to 27 years, you've got to bring in Mandela's first. Because there was no break, he was in prison all this time. These 4 prisons. So Mandela in total was in 4 prisons for 27 years, 6 months, 13 days. So people just discard the 6 months and 13 days and just simply say Mandela was in prison for 27 years. So who served the longest on Robben Island? 2 guys. John Nkosi, Jafta Masemola, both from the Pan-Africanist Congress of Tanzania. 26 years, from 1963 to 1989. Now I'm going to show you Mandela's cell. He was 1.92 centimeters tall, Nelson Mandela, of course. There's a gentleman here who is 6'3". Mandela was 6'4". So he was taller than that gentleman. You'll see as we walk around here. There's someone who is very tall amongst us. All right, so time to go and see Mandela's cell. (1956), that's when the first political prisoners arrive on the island and they are housed with the criminals. But then, over the months, prison authority then realized, no man, these criminals are the most well-behaved people in the prison. They are now talking politics, they are singing freedom songs, and they realized, man, we've opened a recruitment center. And the political activists are a bad influence on the criminals. So they said they must be separated permanently. That's why they built this prison.
Oh, okay.
So there will be 2 prisons on the island. But that one was also shut down in 1974. When did they show you a prison down the road?
Yeah.
To the village? It's called Medium B. That's where these guys were housed. So we knew the criminals, they knew we're here, but we never saw each other. Ever. Yeah. So that would be the distinction. All right. So Mandela said, are we ready, folks? Are there any other questions maybe you have for me? This stone is called Bluestone, folks. It was mined northwest of this island from 1958 until they built the prison. It took 4 years to build this prison, between 62 and 66. Those men were the miners of this stone. All right. Perfect.
Remember that Southwest Africa, just known then, was colonized by Germany. That's long time ago during the days of League of Nations, before we had what is called United Nations today.
Adimba Tewe Trego was here between 1968 and 1985. Now, these men are the only ones who are working at the land quarry. No other prisoners from the other parts of this prison worked at the land quarry. But before land quarry, they'll come out here and they'll crush stone, as you see the picture there. This became an exercise yard from 1973. That's when they stopped them from working here and sending them to the land quarry. So this was Mandela played tennis, did a shadow boxing, but he also had a tomato garden in the corner. He tended to those tomatoes, but he was doing something else there. Because of the constant strip searches in this prison, to find anything that would implicate you politically, we avoided keeping any political materials in the cells. So he buried his diaries at the corner there. Those diaries were smuggled out by a prison officer. His name is James Gregory.
James Gregory wrote a book called Goodbye Bafana. Goodbye Bafana, the book was turned into a movie of the same name. All right. The documents were kept by a guy called Mac Maharaj. It is those documents Nelson Mandela referenced to write his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. When we go in there, Mandela's cell will be fourth on your right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this is the only building. When prison was built, they chose, deliberately so, folks. This was just to dehumanize, to humiliate this man. They chose not to build any toilet or shower, but instead to give each man a bucket to do the business of number 1, number 2 overnight. So every morning, they had a responsibility to carry each man's own bucket across. These walls were not there. These walls are 1977. To Section C, to empty there, to rinse, and to take a shower there. But now, you must also appreciate this. When these men came into prison, the majority of people of South Africa who lived in the rural areas and some of these urban areas, there were no flushing toilets and showers. They were using the bucket that was collected once a week. It will be overflowing and stinking there next to the gate. So when they come in here, they're confronted by the same thing that actually made some people to join the struggle because of fighting to eradicate the bucket system, one of the most hated symbols of apartheid. And here they are in prison, confronted by the same evil. It lasted for 10 years, from 62 until 72. Again, it was the interventions of the International Community Red Cross. At the back of this building, new toilets and showers were built, and in that sense, prisoners' dignity was restored. So when you go in there, you'll see that bucket. And when you see the bucket, that's Mandela's cell. Not that he was the only one with the bucket. We're just demonstrating those. Otherwise, these cells, they all look the same. You know, scene 1, scene them all. We're not coming back out here. There'll be another exit we're going to use, and I'm definitely going to release you so that we get back to the harbor for the last ferry of the day. After this, there is no other ferry. But please do not worry. If you don't intend to leave, there's plenty of room in my father's house. But I'm leaving. Okay. Is there any question, please? Please join me that way. All right. Here is Mandela's cell. I think that you are ready to be released. Yes, sir. All right. Just give me a few minutes. Oh, yes. The enormous responsibility. So they were like in those 2 years, I think 7 years that he was in the prison in Cape Town? Yeah. So he was being groomed, is it? Like there was a dialogue with the... Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. All right. That is the way to the harbor, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye-bye.